Well, look, back in my day, playing with Shaq or Penny would be inside out. So now you got Ja breaking down the defense. The Clippers miscommunicate. You have your 7-footer shooting a three. Come on, GA. The new NBA has really changed. But to your point earlier, both guys understand who they are and what they do best, and Ja Morant sets up his teammates.
And also the fact that, and we were talking about this, Ja has a great feel. He read the defense beautifully there. And something that's kind of underrated is your ability to create an angle for Morant to make that pass. And that was something that Jaren Jackson and guys are starting to understand. They know he's going to live in the paint. And they also know that he's looking to make the right play. And he did a terrific job there on that pass. And the play prior to that, when they got Desmond Bane on a tough baseline jump shot as well, well, the Clippers have played good defense, but the IQ overall of the Grizzlies. Like, those are the kinds of games that you win, you get a lot of confidence from, and the belief starts to grow. And that's why this team, they are trending in the right direction, and they could be really difficult when you look at that Western Conference.
Well, and the key to that, the final play, when we played the clips of the comeback by the Memphis Grizzlies, it was Ja Morant getting downhill to score. So for the Clippers, it seems like a natural reaction towards the end of the game is like, don't give him another easy one in the paint.
Yeah, you don't give it, but one thing we know that Ja will do, he will attack the defense. I think you said it earlier, most of the guards are selling for three-point shots or jump shots. Ja's like, not yet. That's not my specialty. Break down the defense shrink, and now you have a 7-footer knocking down a confident three-point shot, and that's who they are.
Yeah, and something you pointed to, GA, we were looking at Ja Morant as his progression of shooting percentages throughout his career. This year, he's becoming even more efficient, and it seems as if it's about the shots that he's taken and shot selection.
Shot quality is the key, and for a young player to understand what his strengths are. You know, he doesn't try to prove what he can't do. Now, tonight he took 7 threes, but generally he's not going to take a lot of threes at this stage. That'll come later for him. Right now, though, he's good enough to be able to have such an impact and consistently break your defense down. So while he might not take the threes, he's going to create them for his teammates.
Fantastic finish between the LA Clippers and the Memphis Grizzlies that we just got to bring you. How about the games that we had on NBA TV? We had a doubleheader tonight. The second, Dame time against the Phoenix Suns. Highlights coming your way next. 6 and 10.
When we talk about Reggie Jackson, GA talked about Bledsoe, it's going to be about the other guys because Paul George understands what he has to do. Who's going to help him night in, night out so the Clippers can stay competitive?
How about Jaren Jackson Jr. with 18 and 7? And, you know, we were talking about Memphis earlier, GA, off camera. It was like, okay, so for the Grizzlies, you know exactly what you have in Ja Morant. Who's the next guy that you go, okay, we know what we have in him? Seems like Jaren Jackson Jr. should be the answer to that if healthy.
I think Jaren Jackson Jr. can become that guy. And I think the way he plays the game, it's a little different, but he reminds me a lot of LaMarcus Aldridge. You know, he's not going to post as much, but he's primarily going to be a jump shooter. But he also competes defensively. I think he can become a really good rebounder for this group. And I think he's only going to get better. Remember, the injuries really hurt his development. Because it's tough. When you're a young player, you make a lot of progress early in your career. So him having to now kind of hit the reset button coming back from that injury, and he looks good. I mean, he's playing with a lot of energy, a lot of activity. They've drafted really well. They've got really good pieces. I like Steven Adams, even though, you know, he's not the offensive player, but he's a better screener than what they've had with Jonas potentially. And I just think he fits them. So I think this is a team, and you talked about this, Chris. I think they got a great chance to potentially maybe try to get into the postseason and maybe avoid the play-in game. And these are the kinds of games they got to win. They got to beat playoff teams on the road because that's going to give them confidence, and they've been impressive tonight.
And the 6th seed gets you there. DeAnthony Melton, Desmond Bane, those guys in the starting lineup. Dylan Brooks out with the injured hand, 3D. So when you see those guys able to be in the starting lineup, step up, and produce more than 20 points, I mean, that's a good look for Memphis as far as depth is concerned.
Yeah, we got to give Taylor Jenkins a lot of credit. You know, a lot of people's like, well, who's this new coach? Where does he come from? What?
Grizzlies ahead in the 4th quarter. And, you know, Paul George if you look at what he's doing so far, it's early part of the season, the 31 points tonight. They're going to need a lot more if they're going to win without Kawhi Leonard in the early part of the season. What are you seeing with the LA Clippers?
I think the Clippers are going to be fine. I think they're going to win games. Again, you know, they did make some moves this offseason, bringing over Eric Bledsoe, trying to reintegrate him and figuring out how that's going to work out for them. It is hard to replace a guy like Kawhi Leonard, but I'm just basing that a lot off of what we saw last year in the postseason and the success they were able to have and the way they played. And so I think they're going to still be a good team, but it's just that you don't have the cupcake wins in our league the way you used to. Now, it's just you're going to have to be good more consistently. You can't win games when you don't play well. And so that's going to be a challenge for the Clippers, but I still look at them as a team that's going to be in the postseason.
I look for Ty Lue to figure out each night, long road trips, there's going to be a different guy that steps up off the bench. I used Reggie Jackson of last year. When Kawhi went down, we saw Reggie be more and more aggressive throughout the playoffs, make shots, just like the other night, the first couple of games. So I look for Ty Lue to say, is it man? Man had his career high 39 points in the playoffs last year. So it's going to be by committee, because if there's another claw walking around, someone already had him, right?
Yeah.
Now, for Memphis, John Morant with 26 and 7. Jaren Jackson was injured last season, 18 and 6 for him. Having those guys grow together, finally we get to see that in Memphis 3D. What do you think about that combination, what they're bringing to the table tonight, and what could be for them this season?
Well, it's funny because I've got to know Jaren pretty well, you know, being a Sparty with Steve Smith. So the pressure's really on him now. He gets that big extension. You know, Ja is looking for his next year. We think this young team is on the uprise. And GA, you and I talk about all the time. If you two young men are the cornerstone of this team, you have to play like all-stars. You have to, if that's your role to be the franchise players, where each and every night you got to set the table. So now it's more pressure on Jaren, in my opinion, along with Ja, to really get this thing going.
Yeah, but I think the advantage they have is that they really like each other and they complement each other. And so that's something you look at with young guys that are emerging. You know, do they complement each other? Do they like one another? Do their games work well together? And I think that's the case for these guys. And you can see Ja, just a special talent, just an athletic freak, and a great feel for the game as well. And he's going to be fun to watch. If you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, you have to be thrilled to have that young man on your team.
And once you get to the playoffs, Chris, that's when you really can see how well Ja understands what he's doing to get his franchise to the next level, because that's what makes these young guys so special when they get to the playoffs. Do the same thing they do in the regular season, and then elevate their game to the next level.
Yeah, and we just saw in those quick clips of them getting downhill to lead the comeback. It's not, you know, this is a jump shooting league now, and somehow he finds a way to get to the basket and get